Your cybersecurity solution is here. Introducing Pentester's Advanced Cybersecurity Suite. Ready for peace of mind? Try it for free. No credit card required. Pentester.com.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome everybody to Reform Gangsters. And if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't forget about my Patreon. A lot of exclusive content and a lot of new content coming up. I'll just give you a little preview. I have some interviews lined up. I have one with Michael Gibb, rock and roll royalty, the son of Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees. Michael is my brother in recovery, and we're going to talk about a number of topics. We're going to talk about our addictions, our recovery, how our fathers were larger than life is in the rock and roll world, mine in the mob world. It's going to be a great interview. I also have Michael Francis lined up again. We're going to come on and talk about how our fathers only dealt with Democrats and never Republicans now that the election's coming up in November. So that's going to be an interesting topic. I'm also working on a few other interviews with my cousin Gene. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Also, don't forget about my store. I got hats. I got mugs. Today, I'm repping the Yankees. The Yankees are going to play Kansas City on Saturday in the playoffs. We'll see what happens. So today, what I'm going to talk about. It's funny because for some reason, this Joey Molina is a character. Like I said, I knew him. I liked him when I was in the street. He just thinks he's exposing informants and making the defendants out to be the good guys and the informants out to be the bad guys. He actually gave me some content, so I want to thank him. So a couple of weeks ago, so there's Stevie Creer. I don't know if anybody knows him. I didn't know Stevie personally. I knew he was a powerhouse in the Lucchese crime family. He was the underboss. He was a powerful captain. I know people that were with him, Donnie Tafara. I was in prison with him. I know a couple of people that were around him. I know one of his murder victims, Michael Melnish, which the murder he was convicted of was a very dear friend of mine and very good friend of Fat Andy's, my father. Really dangerous guy, but a good guy, so we were very friendly with him. He was a murder victim of theirs. So Stevie Creer was a powerhouse in the Lucchese family. He was the acting boss, underboss. Then he got convicted for killing Michael Melnish on a RICO case, and he got life. So a couple of weeks ago, we all know Joey has a podcast. So a couple of weeks ago, Stevie Creer's son was on. I don't know the kid. I guess he has a podcast because he had a setup with a mic, and he was on. And of course, Joey was sprouting his bullshit about like the informants on Steve, because he's trying to get out on a compassionate release. But anyway, Joey was spilling his natural bullshit about the informants on the case with the bad guys, and Stevie was the good guy. And the son was feeding into it, making his father out to be a saint. But let's talk reality. All right. Let's talk reality. Okay. This is reality. My father, Fat Andy, was a murderer. John Gotti Jr.'s father, John Sr., was a murderer. Nicky Scoffer Jr.'s father, Nicky Sr., was a murderer. Joey Molina's father was a murderer. Buddy Della Croce's father, Arnel, was a murderer. And I could go on. And Michael Francis's father, Sonny, was a murderer. Were they good fathers? Yeah, they were great. My father was a great father, loving, caring, took me to Yankee games, came to our Little League games, taught me how to box, taught me how to throw a baseball, taught me how to swim in Atlantic City, took me horseback riding, actually came horseback riding with us, took me to the beach, had family barbecues, made me receive all the sacraments in the Catholic Church, even though he wasn't a believer, put us in parochial schools, but he was a murderer. He killed people for the mob, just like all these names I mentioned did the same thing. I'm not going to sit here and make my father out to be an angel. I mean, as far as him being a father, he was a great father. He was a great son. He was a great brother to his brothers and sisters. He was a great uncle. My cousins still cry over him that he died. My Uncle Anthony. He was a great friend, but he was dangerous, just like Sonny Francis, just like John Gotti, just like Joey Molina's father, just like Nicky Scapa Jr.'s father, and just like Stevie Crea. They were dangerous guys. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that, listen, that the informants are the bad guys. I mean, yeah, we were bad guys too. We committed a lot of crimes, and some informants do lie when they testify. They, unfortunately, they do. But the bottom line is, our fathers were murderers. I mean, I don't blame Stevie Crea's son for not admitting that, because they're still fighting for stuff, or trying to justify stuff. But for other people to sit here and make out their fathers were angels, it's foolish. It's foolish. Our fathers were not angels. They were dangerous men. They committed murders. They not only murdered people themselves, they gave the order for other people to murder people. So, they were guilty coming and going. I mean, so for me to sit here and say, oh, yeah, my poor father, he was a victim, but because he wasn't. I wasn't a victim either. I went to jail. Listen, I went to jail on a case. I got 10 years. My brother-in-law wore a wire for a year. Every conversation I had would have been taped. I had no shot to beat that case. I went to jail and I hated him. I hated him with a passion. And the hate and the resentment I had used to keep me up at night. And then I talked to somebody, and they told me, until I accepted the part I played in that, that resentment's going to eat me up. And the part I played in it, yeah, he had a wire on it, but I didn't have to talk to him about the things I talked to him about. You know what I mean? And when I understood the part I played in it, I let go of the resentment, and I felt a lot better. And that's what people need to do. They need to let go of them resentments. Listen, my father, everybody's fathers that I mentioned that are in prison, people cooperated against them. Well, the cooperators, good people? No, they weren't. I wasn't a good person. Some of the cooperators lied. I'm sure they did. Did some of them change their lives? Yeah, I changed my life, and I know other cooperators that changed their lives. Mikey Scars, Mikey Francis, we changed our lives. Did everybody that cooperated change their lives? Hell no. But to justify the bad guy against the cooperator is, the record, it's a broken record now. So I'm not going to justify that.
Hunter Biden, George Bush Jr., JFK Jr., all their fathers had people killed too.
Definitely. Hey, that's like in the scene in The Godfather. That's a perfect scene when she told him, your father killed people, and he goes, let's not be foolish. Of course, they try to whack Castro. I mean, come on. Listen, I don't want to get political, but I watch the news, like this guy, George Soros. What are they waiting to get rid of this guy? Like, do something to stop this guy. I mean, the guy's buying 200 radio stations to silence conservative radio. I mean, it's crazy. That's the mafia. But guys in the mafia shouldn't justify any, they're trying to justify their parents' behavior and making it the informants are the bad guys. We're not. Listen, it's not made up. Our fathers were murderers. That's the bottom line. My father was a murderer. Sonny Francis was a murderer. John Gotti Sr. was a murderer. Nicky Scapa was a murderer. Joey Molina's father was a murderer. They murdered people and gave the order for people to be murdered. Were they good parents? Yeah. Were they good friends? Yeah. Were they good brothers and sons? Definitely. But they were a mob. That was the mafia. that was that generation. Now this generation today, they ain't gonna murder a cockroach. You know what I mean? So it's a whole different ball game now. But back then, that's what they did. That's what they believed in. That was part of the game, and that was the norm.
As far as the news and the Mafia, P. Diddy being in the news, it sounds very much like the Mafia with multiple levels of treachery going on. Thoughts on what's going on with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. I mean, especially if there's kids involved. But yeah, he was a gangster. He was a gangster from the hood that became a rapper that got rich, and now he's paying the price. You know what I mean? Wait till they start revealing all these names. Now that they're going to start revealing, this lawyer now got his hooks on everybody, all these victims. Wait, they said this week they're going to start naming A-list names, and it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. A lot of people are shitting in their pants right now. He's in the same jail I was in Brooklyn. He's not on the floor I was in. He's on the same floor my cousin Gene was on, where they keep a protective custody, high profile informants. So he's on a segregated floor. He's locked up all day. He's eating jailhouse food. He's not happy right now. Let me tell you, he's not a happy camper right now. It's like right now, when I was there, it was in June. It was like living inside a refrigerator, but I was on a different floor than him. I was on a regular population floor. He's on a PC floor. So, yeah, it's a shit house. It's a shit house. I don't think he's going to get Epstein because I think that they're probably not the administration and the administration that's running that prison were probably told that nothing better happened to this guy, self-inflicted or not. So I don't think he's going to hang him. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to get a ton of time. When he goes to federal prison, he'll probably be in protective custody, or he'll buy protection. With all his money, he'll buy protection. I don't know. Homeland Security, they went in there allegedly because of the human trafficking. That's their department. So, just like Epstein, they had to protect Clinton and Prince Andrew. Anything's possible. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if that's the real reason, but they're claiming it was because of the human trafficking aspect of it. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was for other reasons also.
I mean, we were talking before the show. There's a lot of emails we get from people looking for help and recovery. What do you say to people who say, I have a dear friend, I love him, he's having a tough time, he needs your help. And then there's another situation where I'm in the program, but it's not working for me. What's your advice to situations like that?
Well, I mean, I would say, first of all, ask them how they're working the program. Do you have a sponsor? Do you have a home group? Are you working steps? Are you doing service? It's one thing to go to a 12-step meeting and just sit there and sit there and sit there. You have to get involved. You have to work a program. You have to get a support group. There's things you have to do. You have to get a sponsor. You have to work. There's nothing that you have to do, but they say there's nothing you have to do, but there are things you have to do. So my question to a person that says AA or NA is not working for me, I would ask them, I would ask them, what kind of program are they working? Are they working the program the way it's mapped out? Do you have a sponsor? Do you have a home group? Are you working steps with that sponsor? Are you doing service work? How many meetings a week are you making? Are you sharing at the meetings? You just can't go there and sit there and recover by magic. You have to put some effort into it. Like, I tell my sponsees, if you put half the effort into your recovery that you put into finding drugs, you may stay clean today. So that would be my response to someone that says a 12-step program's not working. I would ask them how they're going about working that 12-step program. If they're doing all those things and it's still not working, I would tell them to hold on eventually, like I would tell them to hold on because it takes time. Time takes time. We didn't get here in one day. It took years of abuse before we walked in the doors. So I would just say, hold on a little bit. And there's other avenues. I mean, listen, there's other avenues. I don't suggest them. My suggestion is always 12-step programs, but there's smart recovery. There's other avenues that you could take.
Based on your experience in recovery and working as a counselor, what is the most effective treatments for addiction recovery?
Well, I mean, the most successful treatment is working a program. You go to detox. First, you got to get detox. First, you got to get medically detox. Then you got to learn. Then you got to get some tools. Listen, I could only talk about myself. When I decided to stop using, I knew nothing about recovery. I didn't know what to do, where to go. There was a commercial on TV. I used the phone number to the commercial. The person that answered the phone, Joan DeVanzo, got me in a treatment center. When I went into I knew nothing about recovery. All I knew is that I was killing myself. All I knew at that point, I was 35 years old. I knew at that point, if I didn't stop living the way I was living, I was going to die. I knew that. I felt it in my body. I felt pain, physical pain, and I knew I was going to die. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know what to do. I went into a treatment center, and that treatment center gave me tools. And one of the tools they gave me, where they took me to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and when they read the readings in the beginning of the meeting, I identified what was read. And that identification kept me going to the meetings. So the sentence that caught my attention was, in how it works, there's a sentence that they read at every meeting that says, 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And that was my life at that point. 1 was too many and 1,000 was never enough, because once I took 1, I was off to the races and there was never enough. So when I heard that sentence, the light went off in my head, and I stuck with that fellowship for 37 years now. So my suggestion is you try a 12-step program, go to treatment, get some tools, get clean, and use those tools, and whatever works for you, stick at it, stick to it and work it the way it's, you're supposed to work it.
How long does it take, Anthony, to recover from drug addiction?
Oh my God. Listen, it's a lifelong process. I mean, recovery is forever. You know what I mean? I mean, to detox, there's no really answer to that. The detox is maybe a week to feel physically better, but to, listen, I'm clean. I'm coming up on 36 years. Can I have a glass of wine with dinner? I don't know. Maybe I can, but maybe I can't. So to me now is, am I willing to take that risk? And I'm not, because I know from my past experience, alcohol always led me to my drug of choice, was cocaine. So even though I'm clean 36 years, I don't know if I get a little lit up on alcohol, am I going to throw 36? Am I going to look for, my drug of choice? So I'm not willing to take that risk. So there is no time frame on how long does it take to recover, because once you cross over that imaginary line into addiction, there's no going back no more.
Kind of a loaded question with that, but can people fully recover from drug addiction?
Probably a day at a time, yeah. I mean, I'm fully recovered right now. I'm not going to get high today. I don't know about tomorrow, but I'm fully recovered right today. So on October 3rd, in 2024, yeah, I'm fully recovered right now, but I don't know about October 4th.
I'm always impressed by the way you live your life, and you don't mind being around a dinner table with people drinking and, having a good time. Talk to people about how you stay balanced and centered and not get triggered by the norms of society.
Well, in the beginning, I try to stay away from it. Because what happened was, right after I got clean, a very, very dear friend of mine got married, and he had a wedding in a loft in Lower Manhattan. and I was only clean a short period of time. And I went to his wedding, and everybody was blowing coke, and people were offering it to me, and I was telling them no, and they were like looking at me strange. And I was there maybe about an hour, and I knew I either had to leave or I was going to use. And I went up to my friend who got married, and I said, listen, I gave him his envelope. I said, listen, I got to leave. I can't stay. If I stay here, I'm going to use. And he goes, that's the last thing I want you to do, use at my wedding. And I left. So, you got to make a decision first that you're not going to use no matter what. So in the beginning, I stood out of bars. If I had any business appointments, I made them in diners. I had machines. I had a piece of an after-hour club. I went there, instead of going there at 7, 8 in the morning when there was still people there to get my money. I went there after it closed to get my money. So I did things. I changed things up. After I got some time under my belt, then I could be around people that were drinking, not using coke. I mean, people that were drinking. And it just got, once I got some time under my belt, I was able to be around it. Now I'm fine with it now. I mean, when people get drunk, it annoys the shit out of me. It's comical because I look at it, I was like that. They start talking and repeating themselves, and then I have to get away because I get annoyed. But yeah, it doesn't bother me anymore. But I don't suggest it to anybody that's just getting clean, anybody that's just getting sober. I don't. And you know what else too? Like I always had an escape route. If I went to weddings or parties, I always went in my own car. I always, just so I wouldn't get stuck. Because it wasn't like it is now with the Ubers. You could just get, back then, if you didn't have a ride, you could have been there for hours waiting for a cab. If you had to call a gypsy cab or something, it ain't like today. You go on an app and 3 minutes later, you're in a fucking Uber. You know what I mean? So I always had a car with me. I always had phone numbers on me that I could call. So yeah, you got to take precautions.
Do you know any other mobsters that had an addiction and went to rehab and recovered?
No, not really. Not that I'm trying to think. Besides me, I know other guys that went to meetings. I don't know if they went to treatment or not. I know associates that went to meetings. I don't know any maid guys that went. I don't know any maid guys that went to meetings on no. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and don't forget, if you like our content, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to Reform Gangsters and ring that bell. Don't forget about checking out my Patreon, and a couple of really good interviews are coming up. Like I said earlier, with Michael Gibbs, the son of Barry Gibbs, rock and roll royalty. Michael Francis is also coming on, Mob Royalty. He'll be coming on as a guest. So a lot of good content coming up in the near future. Join those calls with Michael Gibbs and Michael Francis. Please join my Patreon. Membership start at $1, and you could ask them your own questions.